Here in Israel, when we saw the response from the Gulf countries, that there was no military response, that there was appeal to the international community, there was a lot of confusion in Israel that the Gulf countries weren't retaliating and to several attacks a day. And so why didn't the Gulf countries respond militarily to attacks on their territory?
Put it this way, Errol. I mean, when you say defensive posture, doesn't translate into being static. I mean, being, adapting a defensive posture means you gradually develop or evolve through experience. Where we ended before the ceasefire, our air forces, navies were conducting different sort of operation in terms of interception, not waiting for those missiles or drones to reach our aerospace. They were engaged far out in the Gulf waters, over the Gulf waters.
Abdallah, obviously defense is super important. We have the defense forces, and that needs to be the focus. But ultimately, when all you're doing is defending, doesn't that encourage or embolden Iran to feel free to attack the Gulf countries in the future?
Put it this way, I was still one of those who, support being proactive in terms of, containment by other measures. We shouldn't sit idle or adopt just a containment sort of measure or defensive measure. When it's come to the threat of Hormuz and so on, we need to really move on our own, even if our allies are lagging or, in area where they can't make up their mind. Certain areas dictate that we face challenges heads on, but I hope we have learned and move on. It's not just addressing the threats coming from Iran or its proxies, but future threats not going to be limited to Iran.
Exactly. And that leads me to my next question, that there is this anticipation that, under this current regime, the threat to the region remains. And you can't beat geography. Bahrain is still going to be across the waterway from Iran, and same thing with the rest of your neighbors. So how is Bahrain preparing for that future scenario?
Before we go to that, back in 1985, the Iranian thought they will test the Saudi resolve. So they launched some of their jet fighters. At least at that time, they did have an air force, and they were on a mission to target, oil facilities and so on, and the eastern province. King Fahd drew a line in the middle where the international waters, the separating or demarcation of international water between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And he said this: anything crosses this line doesn't need my authority, it should be shot down. On that day, when the Iranian decided to test the Saudi resolve, they lost 3 fighters. So in terms of your question, if you don't mind, could you, say it again?
No. So my question is, if this threat is expected to remain, how is Bahrain and its neighbors preparing for a potential future threat emanating from this Islamic Republic in Iran?
I can assure you that's not a Bahrain point of view or a Saudi point of view or UAE or Kuwait or Oman or Qatar. In this, we are one. Even when we disagree on certain details, but you can see that we are part of the we need to up our, redefining tolerance, containment, and at the same time, deterrence. At the same time, we are not out of the equation of what taking place in Islamabad. Personally, I believe that Islamabad being selected for this was, something that the Saudis and the American have reached, and that's why Islamabad was selected and not the usual suspect in any sort of negotiation. So we are present there. Our agenda is presented, and our priorities are very clear to both parties, the Iranian and the American as well.